Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. Before I get started, I just want to mention for some of you that maybe you see my videos and you see 4 or 5 posted at the same time. The reason for this is the computer that I use to edit, which is a little older. Sometimes it gets real cantankerous and it might take me days to get it started. So if it won't start up and I spend a little bit of time and I got other things to do, well, I have to put it off and put it off. So anyway, I hope that gives you a good understanding of that. Why some of them are 4, 5, 6 days, even a week old, is because that's what it takes to get the things edited to put them up. Also, it's getting towards the end of the year, and it's that conversation that most gardeners have. What am I going to do in my spring garden? And a lot of you hadn't even started to buy your seeds. Now, me, myself, I have all the seeds I'm going to plant. A lot of people, well, I say I do. You know, it seems like something always comes up. You're getting all those seed catalogs in right now, and they're trying to entice you into growing something, and you're seeing something that you thought you'd want to grow for years, maybe, and you finally decide to get some seeds for it. But anyway, it's that time of year to start considering what you're going to grow. And with the seed selection, a lot of times there's problems with the supply chain for them. I know there's a lot of seeds that aren't available yet that I've got, back orders on. And like I say, I got most of mine because I buy them when it is in season. Usually when everybody else is just planting and they've finally decided to get theirs, I'm buying mine for next year. And sometimes when I buy them a little late in the season, I'll see something and I'll buy 3-4 pounds of some beans or something. Not that I'm going to use them all in one planting. It could be years worth. But I just separate them per pound in a bag and put them in Mylar bags, heat seal them, and throw them in the freezer. They'll be there. But anyway, seeds are important, and you need to get them. And if you haven't got them already, you need to get on the stick and get them. Now, if you're way up north and the planting season's real late, well, you still got time. Of course, if you wait for all us southerners to buy ours, you might not get none. So consider that. I'm not trying to get you worried or feared, but there's no use in putting it off to the last minute. Now, when it comes to planting seeds, a lot of you want to grow your own seedlings. It's not like most of the urbanites that just want to go down to the big box stores and buy theirs. They want to grow theirs. They want certain varieties, and they want to get them started. Okay, that's what this video is about. It's getting you prepared. Now, whether you're up north or whether you're down south, it doesn't matter. You don't look at where your zone is. You have to look up and see what your last frost date is for your spring planting, because everything is based around that last frost date. And down here for us, I think it's around, the average is around March 28th, the end of March. Now, most people, whenever they start putting out their little transplants, the time around here, and like I say, I'm in zone 8B, but it's got to do with your frost, your temperature. Your zone indicates your lowest temperature in that area. It doesn't have anything to do with your planting dates. It just depends on if you're going to plant certain types of crops. You need to know if you're expecting them to come back next year. You don't want them to get too cold that it kills them off. Fruit trees and some other annuals. But anyway, like I say, mine is March 28th. And so whenever I start my seedlings, usually I plan on having them ready about that time, or maybe a couple weeks early. Now, if you get them early, you have to watch, because sometimes you end up, excuse the hand there, sometimes you end up with a situation to where your little seedlings get root bound. So if you're going to have to hold on to them longer, be prepared to pot them up into a bigger pot. That way, whenever it's time to put them in the ground, they're vigorous and ready to stretch those roots out. They're not trying to roll them in a circle and end up, you wonder why they didn't do well and they died off. But anyway, when you plant seeds, most of your seeds that you're going to plant, and I'm going to give some varieties now. I'm not going to go into all of them because it's easy to find out. I know Johnny's Seeds has a section, a library section that you can actually put in your average last frost date, and it'll tell you how many weeks to count back to plant something. But I'm going to tell you, if you're planning to plant onions, you need to get them in the ground. If you normally have been buying spring onions, and you're going to grow your own this year, you want to grow your own this year, you need to get them in the ground. In our area, normally we set out our onions roughly around the same time we set out our potatoes, and that's like the middle of February, or a lot of people do Valentine's Day, whether you're in 8 through 9 or in that area. That's normally when they put them in the ground. Now, you can put them in earlier, but if they come up and you got a freeze coming or hard frost, you'll have to go out there and you'll have to pull some dirt over the tops. Now, they will come back, but if you throw dirt over the tops, it doesn't slow them down. They just keep on growing. Your onions, when you're planting onions, it varies on how quick and how big onions. Now, the more you plant in a tray, if you watch some of my videos on onions, the longer it's going to take them to get to a big size. But I plant them when they're fairly small. I don't wait till they're like you buy at the big box store. And I have found out too, and I'll probably talk about it in a video pretty soon, but I have found out now, I always cut my onions back. They'll grow up, I'll cut them back a couple inches, let them grow up again. And that tends to make them more vigorous. But when I go to plant, I tried this time, because sometimes the tops get long and they kind of get tangled up and it gets to be a little bit of a problem. I went ahead and cut them back when I planted them, and it'd been nice if Travis over with Lazy Dog Farms had told me about what he did and the problem he had, before I planted. Of course, we were planting roughly about the same time, and he did the same thing, and he noticed on some of them, and it's experimental, and that was the same thing with me, but he noticed that they didn't take off like the other ones. Normally, when I take them out in my containers, I cut the roots back to about 1 inch long, which is fine. That doesn't slow them down. But I had noticed where the ones that I had left and hadn't cut, I had a few and I stuck in that I hadn't cut, that they were outgrowing the ones that I had cut the tops on. So if you're going to cut them back and you're going to have them in the pot still and they're growing, that's fine. But when you get ready to put them out into the ground, don't cut your tops back. If they're tall, they'll stand up and they'll go. Onions take about 10 weeks, can take about 12 weeks. So if you figure 10 weeks, that's 2.5 months. If you plant them right now, you really encourage the growth on them, you'll have them ready at planting time to put out. Now, I'm going to plant some here just pretty soon, not here in the next week or two. So don't think that you're going to be way behind. But what I'm doing is I grow onions in the fall, and they harvest off pretty early in the spring. If you plant your onions in the spring, they'll harvest off a little later in the year. And so that's part of my plan. As far as normally I just plant that through the winter crop, but this year I'm going to try later crop. That way I still have slicing onions, because We can freeze dry ours and preserve them because onions only store for so long. And down in the south, we're not like those of you up in the northern long day area where you can plant those long day onions, and most of your really good storage onions that'll store 6 to 8 months are long day onions. These ones in the south that we grow, they're mostly sweet onions, and that all that extra sugar I think has something to do with it because they hold more water and they tend to only store. You might get 2, maybe 3 months. I think there's a variety. I'm going to try this next planting that I've got with a red onion that's probably closer to 4 to 6 months storage. But yeah, freeze dried onions, you can use them in all kind of stuff, but they just, even if you hydrate them up, they're just not good chopped up on a burger. We like sliced onions. So we spent that time on onions. So if, like I say, if you've got 2.5 months, 10 weeks that you got to go from seed to growing an onion, you need to get them planted because that'll put you right in the middle of February. Or I say that'll put you in the middle of March right now. It'll be a little bit late, but you'll still be able to make onions. Okay, the other thing is peppers. Now, peppers, like your bell peppers, chili peppers, all of them, they take about 8 to 10 weeks too. So they're really slow to germinate, where you might get a tomato plant comes up, or tomato seed germinates in about 2-3 days. Peppers might take a week, 10 days, even 2 weeks to germinate. So, and they're really slow to start out with. So if you're planting peppers and you want to get them out early, right now, if you planted them right today in my area, they would be ready to put out at the end of February, which is kind of early. So I'll want to start those, and I'll probably start them the middle of January because if they get too big, I'll pot them up, and we'll see. I might even put a few of them in the greenhouse, and I can control the heat just a little bit better in there. Now, tomatoes take 6 to 8 weeks, and normally it's about 6 weeks. If they're getting plenty of fertilizer once they germinate, and you're watching your water good, not overwatering, not underwatering. So if you're going to have tomatoes, and tomatoes are one of those things, they might take a really light frost. Now, I have mine where they got a good heavy frost, but I come out real early and wet them down. They won't take a freeze. They don't like it. It gets below 32 degrees or 32 or below for very long. Kiss them goodbye. So if you're starting out a crop and they're very big and you can't cover them, then you're going to be in trouble. Now, a lot of times we plant a few early. That way we'll have earlier tomatoes. But when it's going to come a freeze, we'll cover them. Now, in the greenhouse here, we'll be growing some tomatoes, and we'll be intercropping because we're going to put in another row of lettuce in here, I think, and another row of carrots. Now, when it's time for the tomatoes to come in, we'll just interplant them in amongst them. The carrots won't mind because the extra shade, but it does take a tomato a little bit to get up there. It might affect them a little bit because early on in the tomatoes this year, I'll be using a little more nitrogen. Normally I don't, but I'm going to try to get my plants bigger quicker, but not so much that it hangs in there a long time and they end up not wanting to flower. But anyway, this is just a reminder. Get your seeds. Get whatever you need to plant your plants in. You don't have to have a grow light. If you are up north and you can't get light, and if you don't have a small greenhouse or something, or a south facing window, you might need a grow light. But and it does work good for getting some of those up. But you can only grow so many plants under a grow light. I've got two 4-foot grow lights that are they're 2 foot wide, and of course you can see in some of my older videos. And I still have a hard time growing everything. Now with the greenhouse, it's going to work out a whole lot better because I can use row covers over my plants, and I don't have to worry about the wind blowing them off, so it's easy to put them on and take them off. And that'll keep them if it decides to get cold, because even though here today, the day after Christmas, and it's going to be up close to 80 degrees, which is seasonably warm, and it's really bad when you have lettuce and stuff like that. We've got the sun to kind of keep it off, but it really wants to cause a lot of things to bolt or get out of their cycle. Onions, you tend to have more of them that'll decide to put up a seed top. Now, if your onions start to go to seed and you're not wanting to collect seed, go ahead and snap that off as early as possible. And when you harvest those onions, go ahead and use those ones first. In fact, I'd recommend, if you're needing onions to eat, go ahead and pull those ones up and use them, because there's nothing wrong with the flavor of the onion. Of course, the green part of the onion is fantastic in cooking. But anyway, I guess that's enough rattling on. Get your seed catalogs out. If you go through your seed supply, see what you've got, and let's make an effort to grow something. And if you've been thinking about growing, you're just watching all these YouTube people about growing, grab you a bucket or grab you a pot and stick something in it. And kind of let me know what you might be growing this next year, especially if it's something new that's you're excited about. And of course, if you want to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe, hit the bell button, give it a big thumbs up, and share it. It really helps my channel. Happy gardening.